Very good.
Yeah, nice
Wow.
talking to you again. Happy New Year to you and yours.
Hey, thank you.
Alrighty, just give me a
Yeah.
few secs here. Let me see. There was one small change that the network pulled on us today. We're 13 minutes and 30 seconds segment instead of the 14:25. So
Okay.
still have four. We still have four segments. It's 54 minutes compared to 58 minutes. Apparently, there are more advertisers, and it's just audio, buddy. No video. So if you
Oh,
could, yeah,
okay.
thank you. What'd you do to your hand?
Oh, I almost cut off two fingers the other day.
John, how?
Wow. Well, I had my HVAC broke,
Uh huh.
so there went 20,000.
Oh, God.
Well, I'm like, well, I gotta get as much cash as I can. So I told the people, I want that old unit so I can go turn in the scrap metal, get something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I threw the condenser in the back of my truck and it smashed my finger against the blade
Ooh.
of the fan and sliced through two fingernails and bleeding all over the place.
Oh, God.
Uh, the bone snipped off internally, so it's basically broken completely. But they said it'll fuse back if I don't do anything extensive with it. So,
Oh, man. What a way to start your new year off, eh?
oh, I know. It slows down my typing. I mean, I'm in cybersecurity, I
Yeah.
mean, so it's annoying.
Ah. Well, I wish there was something I'd do for you, pal, but
Well, I am very happy to have my fingers, so
yes. Yes.
I can cross my fingers.
Alrighty. Are you ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, I am.
All right.
I
Thank you
am.
very much for sending me all the information you did. And my producer says that we can start right now. So 15 seconds.
All right.
Oops, hold on here for a sec. Craig, look what you're doing, you turkey. You've got, no, Craig, you've got it as a stopwatch. You've got the clock going the wrong way. All right, hold on. I'll fix it over here. 13, 30, 45. Yeah, okay, it's working right now. So let's start again. 15 seconds. Stand by.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next 2 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. If you'd like to send me an email, my email address is so simple that everyone can do it, including my grandchildren if you're listening. Hint, hint. Xzone at classic1220.ca. My first guest tonight, Xzone Nation, is a gentleman I've had the pleasure of having on the show before. His name is John MILOR, and he is the author of 13 published books and is most commonly known for his pioneer research in the emerging field of Christian ufology. a combination of ancient astronaut theory and end-time prophecy. He has been a paranormal researcher for over 30 years now. John's interest in understanding the paranormal began at a young age after hearing his great-grandmother's tale of seeing a UFO over 100 years ago. His great-grandmother's tale is unique because she was the wife of a minister. Joining me now is John Miller. And John, welcome back to the X-Zone. Always great having you here, my friend.
Hey, yeah, thank you very much for having me on again.
John, for the listeners who may not have had the opportunity of hearing you in the past, tell us a little bit more about yourself and the sighting that your grandmother had over 100 years ago.
Okay, so yeah, I've always kind of had this spiritual slant, but I suppose some of it goes back to when I was 5 years old, and my great-grandmother, she basically dropped a bomb on the whole family, a bombshell, during a huge family gathering. So I think we were there at her house like for Christmas, and I was 5 years old. This was back in 1975. And she hushed everybody up that was at the house, and like my dad, my uncle, my aunts, everybody was there. And she said, "I have something to tell everyone." And then she started to read this newspaper article about a UFO chase between police and a UFO in the outskirts of Madera, California. And the scene she described was exactly like the opening scene of Close Encounters of the Third Kind,
right?
Which hadn't come out yet. So I wonder, where that story came from. It could have been from Madera, possibly. I did try to find the newspaper article because I got that pegged down to when I was 5 years old that she told that story.
Right.
But anyways, she told the story, and then after she read this newspaper article, which everybody's kind of puzzled and just staring at her like, okay, why is grandma, reading about a UFO? We know who she is. You described her in the intro that, retired minister for 30 years was my great-grandfather, and, they traveled all over the United States, and she was just very consumed with Jesus. They were still in ministry in their local church. They did intercessory prayer for people all the time, and just the whole life was devoted to ministry. So, she has also stories about encountering an angel that saved her life once, and she literally witnessed Jesus heal her from a stroke. So these kind of things, as outlandish as those are, she was healed from a stroke. Jesus walked into her hospital room and she was paralyzed. She couldn't move, and then suddenly she was instantly healed. So that kind of freaked the doctors out. And, so that has something with it where it's like you kind of scratch your head and like, well, okay, all right, maybe she did. It was a miracle that she was healed. So, but the UFO story, how does that fit? But she said that when she was a little kid, she and her sister saw a UFO on the plains of Kentucky, and they lived out in the middle of nowhere. Neither of them had even seen a motorized vehicle before. So this was like 1910,
right?
Out in the plains of Kentucky. They had a wagon. When they came west, she walked behind the wagon.
Holy cow! That was really a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. So. They saw this thing. It was made of, she said it looked like a seamless, polished aluminum, the shape of a cigar, bigger than an automobile, like maybe 30 feet long or so, had a bubble on top, and it cruised right by, right in front of them, so close they even saw the guy. I mean, he turned and looked at him as he flew by. I wish, my grandmother were still around, because I'd be asking her more details, like, was he a human? I mean, she said he was. I saw the person inside, she said, so like, okay, did he have really big eyes, unusually large eyes? Did he have hair on his head? What was the deal? I didn't get to ask those kind of questions, and she's gone now on the other side. But yeah, this thing was only like 30 feet off the ground, cruising right along, completely silent. And then it shot off over these bluffs and disappeared into the sky. It just went straight up, just poof. And so her and her sister ran back home and told their mother, and she told them to never, ever tell anyone that story again. So, My guess is she was protective of the family reputation, didn't want anybody saying
Of
her
course.
kids were telling, lying,
Hmm.
telling these stories or whatever. But grandma didn't have any reason to lie about something like that. They'd never seen anything like that. Didn't have any frame of reference to describe it. They weren't exposed to a lot of society. I mean, they were out in the middle of nowhere. So now, and she's in her 70s, late 70s. Here she sees this article. Suddenly all that came back. And she's like, you know what? This is what this reminds me of. And I'm tired of holding it back, you know? And the thing is, her sister died shortly after they saw this. So in her teens, I didn't even know that until she told that story. And well, oh, grandma had a sister. Okay. So she had that story to herself for, I don't know, 60 plus years. And suddenly she's like, this happened. And I don't care what people think. Those things are real. And that's where she left it. And, I asked my mom thousands of questions on the way home, like, what is this, And she's like, well, Star Trek. We were big Trekkies. So it's kind of an easy transition. It's like, well, it's probably realer than most people think. Yeah.
John, isn't it true that there are so many people out there, even today, after all the information that has gotten out there about UFOs, the congressional hearings, that there are still a lot of people who have had sightings and don't talk about the sightings or encounters or the abductions that they've had in fear of ridicule?
Yeah, it's becoming less so. For example, my pastor's wife, she told me that she saw a UFO, came right above her car, over here on 99,
Wow.
between Fresno and Lemoore.
Mm-hmm.
And this thing was actually following their car. They had a sunroof, and they looked up, and this thing was like right above their car, very close. And they're like, what the heck? And she said it followed them for a couple of miles, hovering directly above their car. And they all saw it. It was broad daylight. So, and she's my pastor's wife. She's like, I don't care. If it happened, it happened.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people are more or less just talking openly about it now, a lot more so anyway.
That story about your pastor's wife reminds me of a case that when I was in the police force was reported to us, and I was assigned it. There was a lady, an RCMP officer's wife with her 3 children in a car on their way home to St. Lazare, Quebec, when they saw what they described as a UFO that was following them. And they got home. They ran into the house. They told her husband, and her husband called the police. And these things do happen.
Yeah.
And when the story comes to you, like from a pastor's wife or the wife of an RCMP officer who was formerly a member of the U.S. Border Patrol, this is credence. This is something that cannot be denied.
No, it can't. And it got ridiculous. That's why that Navy pilot finally came forward, because there were all kind of safety incidents around the USS Nimitz.
Mm-hmm.
And people almost getting killed. These things were buzzing their aircraft. And it's ridiculous that the level of technology we're dealing with. They said that these things would go several times faster than a nuclear submarine underwater, shoot out of the water and blast off in outer space in seconds, in just blink of an eye, way faster than they could even track. And they're like, what kind of technology can do that? Can do circles around their F-22s like it's yesterday's technology. There was some speculations about it, like, well, maybe they got this blue beam and they're just projecting laser holographics of these things, but not likely. Not when you can see it with your eyes, not when you're tracking it with sonar, not when you're tracking it with, radar,
Sure.
sonar, and eyewitnesses, all.
Now, something I've heard that theory about a hologram, and one thing that I can tell you, if it is a hologram, it doesn't show up on radar.
You wouldn't think so,
Yeah.
unless they were able to game the radar system with some kind of hacking technology and make it show up that way as well.
But that would take
yeah,
some technology to do that in order to break into the secure systems of both the USS Nimitz as well as
yeah,
the fighters.
it would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
And honestly, you're talking about multiple levels of uh, you you because they've also had phantom incidents where they see something in the radar but they don't see it in the sky, right?
Right.
So that they're like, okay, this is something's monkeying around with our radar or our sonar, but to see all three, cross-reference all three at the same time, and then this is actually coming from our military, which in the past, up until recently, relatively recent, I guess during the pandemic is when all this changed, right? So everybody's distracted with, COVID and whatnot, and then they come on the news and say, oh, by the way, the Navy's come out and said that there's things out there, and they don't know what the heck they are.
John, stand by,
And
buddy. John, stand by. We've got to take a break. X Zone Nation. I'm Rob
yeah,
McConnell. This is the X Zone. John Millar is our special guest. JohnMillar.com. JohnMilor.com is his website. And we're talking about the connection between Christianity, UFOs, and much more. We'll be back on the other side of this break as the X Zone continues right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. All right, give me a sec here. And the producer said, let's go. So 15 seconds, here we come. Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, and my guest this hour is John Millar. John has written a number of books, and John draws from an extensive academic background when he talks about UFOs and unknown phenomenon that are appearing over the skies of over every country in the world. John has 2 associate degrees, a bachelor, and 2 master degrees. He is also a retired military combat veteran. He started in active duty in the Army Infantry and as an M60 gunner, then later transitioned to the Air National Guard, where he maintained a top secret security clearance for over 20 years. In 2021, he retired as the Chief of Cyber Operations for the United States Western Air Defense Sector, and he now works in the utility sector in the field of cybersecurity. Once again, his website is johnmilor.com, JohnMilor.com. John, over the years we've talked about so many projects that you've worked on. We've talked about your books. What's your latest project?
So, of course, I'm studying MUFON to be a field investigator. That's one thing I have on the side.
Mm-hmm.
But something that I've had on my plate for a while is my first book called Apparition. I wrote that over 20 years ago, and it's sad when I reread it because that was my first official book, and the writing is like, oh my goodness, this is terrible. So I even wanted to take it off my website, until I get it, just a complete rewrite.
Sure.
So I've finally got to that, and I'm jumping on it, and it deals mostly with the phenomenon of astral projection, of which I have familiarity myself, and I've also done a lot of research, and I've done I know people that have things, they have abilities and whatnot. So I learned quite a bit about it, and I put a lot of what I learned into the book.
For our listeners who may not know what astral projection is, how would you describe it to them?
Well, there's different levels of it. Shareware version of it is remote viewing, and they have courses. They teach you how to do that, where you could see through time, space to different locations, describe things that are there, and go through various exercises or whatnot. But astral projection's the full-blown professional version. If you have that, another word for that is out-of-body experience. So say like a near-death experience where somebody dies and they leave their body and they're floating above their body and they see their body, that's astral projection. Big difference there, though, is out-of-body experiences, quite frequently, more often than not, the person comes out of their body and they're still there in the area where they can see their body, where they can hear things going on around them still. Some people will venture away a little bit, or they'll see something, that try to entice them to follow them or whatever. Different stories and accounts I've read, they vary. One guy had these two things that pretended to be nice, and they were trying to take him to hell. So that was not good. So that is a form of astral projection, but you could also have astral projection where you leave this dimension altogether, or like my friend Dav, that he's gone to parallel dimensions, and he's described it that he would think that he's there in his house and everything's the same, and go downstairs into the living room, and then the coffee table's in a different location, or there'll be something slightly different. And he's seen this a number of times, and it just really puzzles him. He tried to do tests, for example, like have a friend put a card that says something on it, and he's trying to verify this, and it's hit and miss. So he'll go there, the card won't be there. He'll go back to his body, and his friend will be like, yeah, the card's there. It's like, what the heck, But your house looked a little different. Did you rearrange your furniture? No, I didn't. Oh, dang. So that's one of the things that's frustrating about it for my friend, because when I told him, in order for this to be really usable as like what the CIA would want to use it for, espionage, right? It'd be the perfect espionage. You can go anywhere, literally any location on Earth, and collect information on what's going on there. So who wouldn't want that as a spy tool? That's why our CIA's,
I used to have, I've had Uri Geller on the show, and he's told me that he has been asked by the CIA to use his abilities of remote viewing in order to help them establish whether locations are being used by nefarious, at the time it was the Russians, to see if the Russians had actually moved into a certain location, and if he could give them the description of what is in that building. And this is going back 20, 25 years ago.
Oh, and you can imagine they've come a long way.
Yeah.
In that time. So I can almost guarantee you they can do those things now. Inigo Swan was another one.
Yeah.
They did tests with him down in a submarine to see if he could nail stuff, and he was getting things right. So there's definitely a use for it, but the reliability factor is an issue, because people that leave, they describe things like possible parallel dimensions. In the book Out of Body Experiences by Dr. Robert Monroe, he was one of the premier experimenters of this, because this just happened to him. He woke up in the middle of the night, went to the bathroom, his hand passed through the doorknob. He was all tripping out and looked over, saw his bed. His body was still on the bed. He didn't even know that he left his body. And he panicked when that first happened, and then flew back into his body. And then it progresses from there and gets crazier and crazier. On one occasion, he came out of his body, turned himself around, and then poked his face into his own head to see what his brain looked like. And he found himself in another location. It was this big wall, and he found this, it was dark, and he found this wall, just feeling his way around, and went through a crack in the wall and was flying for a long time. And eventually it occurred to him, I wonder what it looks like. Why is everything so dark? And suddenly he could see. And he was flying. in another place. It was another world just like Earth, but it was different. They didn't use electricity. They had some kind of plasma type energy, and their cars were like ridiculously large. But they had houses, and it was a society, you know, and agriculture and all that. And the guy had a family and a wife and kids and everything. He was literally possessing another guy. He found out, and he kind of screwed the guy's life up. Because every time he'd pop in, he was literally possessing this other dude, and it was awkward, and it was, you know, he would have to try to read the guy's mind to figure out what he was talking about and try to blend in, but it didn't work very well. And it's just weird stuff, you know. His story was crazy, but he created the whole Monroe Institute. He's dead now, but you know, they still have the institute, and they train people how to do this stuff, and there's a lot that goes on there, and the stories are pretty fascinating. I mean, there's people that they've gone to Mars, for example. They say that there's big facilities there, and our government's there. Our government's on the moon, they say. There's facilities there.
Well, hold on, John. These are wild statements. How can they prove them to be real?
That's the thing. That's what's difficult about it, because they can't really prove it unless they do verifiable tests. And there have been people that have done verifiable tests. There was a guy that popped out of his body. It started with an out of, you know, near-death experience, and he flew above the hospital, and he saw a sign on the top of the hospital. And when he came back to his body, he mentioned it to one of the nurses, and they said, there is a sign on the roof that says that. So they took that idea and they employed it with other people that, you know, to see if they could replicate that same test. And they have been able to replicate it, but not with 100% accuracy.
I mean, if somebody, you know, somebody saying that they've gone to Mars, and the U.S. government is there, or they've gone to the moon, and so on. Hey, it was just today that Japan landed on the moon, for goodness sake. So if we're still using this technology, and these people who are having these out-of-body experiences and making claims that they've gone to Mars and the moon, and they've gone into parallel universes or multiverses, you know, something doesn't make sense here. And I wrestle with this all the time, because I haven't had anybody on the show who've said that they've gone to Mars or they've gone to the moon out of body or anything like that. And when I hear these stories, I wonder, well, is it true or is it fact? If it's true, why haven't we heard about this before? Why isn't it being covered by mainstream media? This is another another step forward in science.
It is. It's the next. It's beyond space.
It's going to put the travel industry out of business.
Yeah. So, you know, I know people that could do this, and my main contact, he was able to naturally do it since he was a little kid, and he can pretty much do it at will. Just has to meditate for a while, and then he can pop out. And he's had sporadic results in terms of being able to verify, but there's just some really fascinating things about it. For example, he left his body once, and he went to an aunt's who lived in another state. Just thinking about her, boom, he was right there. He was in front of her house. And he moved over to a vehicle, and he looked at his image in the mirror, and he said he was a dark silhouette, and it looked like outer space, like stars and stuff. It's a dark silhouette of a human that had like the cosmos inside of it. So that was odd. And then he saw a window, and he walked over to the window, and he looked in there, and he saw her eating breakfast. And she was sitting at the table next to the window eating breakfast. And he thought, okay, here she is. And he walked over and he knocked on the window, and she turned and she looked at him, but didn't really give much thought, you know. And he's like, well, she actually looked at me. She heard that, and she looked, but she's not doing anything. What the heck? And so he went back to his body and immediately went over and called her. And he said, are you eating breakfast right now? She said, yeah. And he said, did anything happen outside the window? Did you hear a noise on the window? And she said, yeah, that's really weird that you asked. There was this bird that flew over to the window and hit against the window, and he was all flapping and acting all really kind of weird on the window. And I'm wondering, what the heck is this all about?
Hey, John, we're going to have a cliffhanger here because I've got to take my break right now. Exonation, John Millar is our special guest. JohnMillar.com is his website. And John and I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue talking about out-of-body experiences, astral projection, demonic activity, and much more. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, and you're listening to us on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. We'll be back after this very short break. Don't go away. All right, stand by. Alrighty, what have you got for me now, Craig? Yeah, I see it. Okay, here we go, 15 seconds.
See the fear and commotion. I think we missed it. Anybody here see the love, see the hate, the emotion?
Welcome back, everyone. Are you a skeptic or are you a believer? That's my question for you today. Is, in your opinion, Exonation, astral projection possible? Is near-death experiences possible? Send me your email. xzone@classic1220.ca. And my guest this hour is John Millar. I had the pleasure of having John on the show many times. His website is johnmillar.com. Now, John, continue your story about your friend who went out of body to his aunt's house and was questioning her on the events that happened just prior to him coming back into his body.
Well, she said that there was a bird acting all crazy, smashing its body against the window trying to get her attention, and she'd never seen anything like that before, ever, and it was just really weird. So we were kind of speculating that maybe his desire to go communicate with her, he might have accidentally, without knowing it or whatever, possessed a bird and flew over there to the window and was knocking on the window, and from his perception, he didn't even see the transition or notice it, but he might have been inside of an animal's body. So that was one speculation, but honestly, we're not 100% sure. And the perception that you have when you're out of your body also can be subject to interpretation, because you're in a realm of where your consciousness is somewhat manipulating what's around you.
Right.
So your state of mind can affect the things that you see and the places that you go. And he had situations where he would see a person and just like fly down from the sky and stop a person that he saw walking on the sidewalk in a big city and ask a question. And the person would stop and talk to him. Like he said, like it's a normal thing. And he said that you could go and talk to people all the time. They'll perceive you. They'll like see you. But then if you go and you contact them later on, they'll say, you know what, that's weird. I haven't thought about you in a long time. And you just recently popped into my head, and I was thinking about that conversation that we had. And he said, that's what we literally talked about. So it got me thinking that maybe a lot of our thinking, when we think about people out of the blue, or, I should call so-and-so or whatever, or you discover that you're in sync with someone when you talk, and then they say, oh, you know what I was doing, I just thought about that too, and I was thinking to call you. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think on some level we probably are actually communicating, and it's a lighter version of that. what he's experiencing is the full conscious episode of it, where he's literally flying there and stops these people. They do, a part of them perceives it, and he actually is seeing that part of them, rather than perceiving, what may be literally going on in this world physically. So
Now-
it's interesting the variations that you can find when you have people that have this ability and they tell you about it.
Now, have you done any testing with him yourself, John? Like, you're a very smart guy. Have you set up some sort of experiment that you yourself could take part of the experiment to validate this?
I did. Risky though, because my wife would probably be able to see him if he came here. She could see stuff, and she would probably be really pissed at me, allowing some astral projector to come into my house. And I've heard of situations like that where someone will ask for an astral projector to come to their house, and it opens a can of worms. Their house can become, porous. Then spiritual things could come in as a result. It could kind of open a door, so to speak. But I did kind of take a risk, and I asked if he could at least go to my backyard on a particular day, right?
Yeah.
And tell me what was in my backyard. And that I had something set up back there next to my garage that was separate from the house, that, and ask him if he could see what was there. And, if he could do that much, then we would take it to the next step. And he said he went ahead and went into a trance that night. And he said the thing that showed up freaked him out. This creature was like 10 feet tall. And he said, if you can imagine an elf with a slightly distorted, extra elongated face, and, really pointy ears, but really big. And its body was luminescent like a rainbow. He said it was absolutely beautiful, but at the same time, it was extremely powerful and scared the crap out of him, which I thought was unusual because, this guy, he had actually been chased by demons before. He had encountered so many things and was just able to go up and talk to a lot of stuff that's weird like that. But this thing, for whatever reason, it scared the crap out of him. And he said it's because it was so powerful and it was overwhelming. And it agreed to take him to see me. This thing knew where I was and how to find me. And it was going to escort him, and he started to go with it, but the fear just kept growing, and he finally said, no way, I can't handle it, and he bailed. So that kind of discontinued it, and then I thought, well, maybe it's for the best, because, I just didn't know how that was going to pan out with my wife and what could happen as a result. Plus my own prior experiences myself experimenting with it, they weren't all pleasant. I've had things trying to pull me out of my body before, and it didn't feel good. That was not right. So I'm on the fence about it. I'm totally fascinated by it. I'd love to know how to do it. Who wouldn't want to know how to fly and, be able to walk through walls and explore Mars, right? But at the same time, the dangers that are there, completely unknown. I'm kind of thinking you'd be like a little 5-year-old walking around a city like New York.
Let me ask you something. If you're having an out-of-body experience or astral projecting, is it possible that you could actually meet your demise while you're doing this? And let's say, for example, you're killed or you die during one of these out-of-body experiences. What happens to your person in this dimension, the person that is now void of your essence?
Well, without your spirit, you would die. However, if something popped into your body before you died, it could completely take you over. And that guy, Robert Monroe, he had experiences where he left his body, and when he came back, he found himself in another location, like in his kitchen. Had no idea how he got there. Didn't know what he was doing for the past hour, and wondered, what's going on? What was my body doing? Who or what was controlling it? He had absolutely no idea and no memory. So what would happen if he would have died. The silver cord would have severed, and he would have been separated from his body, but whatever was controlling it was still doing it. And then it would just decide, okay, I'm here to stay, and wherever you are, bye. So there's that possibility. And of course, there's things that you encounter out there, and that's another thing that bothered me about it. It seemed like it's very unlikely to be able to leave your body without encountering something that wants to talk to you, something or a bunch of things. It seemed to be kind of populated around us when we leave our body. And you can't really be out for very long before you encounter something that wants to talk with you, and then that bugs me, because where's the line with divination and stuff? You're not supposed to be messing with spirits. I'm a Christian. I don't want to be doing that. I don't want to talk to anything. I just want to explore. But it's almost impossible to leave your body and just kind of be solo and be left alone. Things want to interact with you wherever you go. So that's a feat in itself, just to be able to run around and not encounter anything and not have to communicate with anything.
Is there any mention of astral projection in the Bible?
There is. So I suspect King Solomon probably knew how to do it. The things he was into, was everything. And here you have a person that asked God for divine wisdom and knowledge. He was probably smarter than Einstein and, Albert Schweitzer put together. And then also he got into, all of these other religions and idolatry stuff in his later life. So he probably got into sorcery and was learning all kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And according to the Quran and the Hadiths, he was probably the most powerful sorcerer who ever lived. They say he commanded an army of these jinn, which, otherworldly beings. Essentially, they're Nephilim. So if you can imagine somebody who's smart enough to figure out how to have and wield an entire army of Nephilim.
Why would King Solomon, use the word jinn when jinn is an Islamic word?
I'm referencing information about King Solomon from Islamic literature.
I see, okay.
So that's why I say that. The Bible doesn't talk about him, being over an army of jinn or anything like that. So that's purely Islamic literature. They might have got that from some esoteric texts or whatever, some of the Jewish Kabbalah type stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But, Solomon's not somebody you want to look up to in terms of, hey, let's just do everything that Solomon did, because he let himself go there, especially in the end.
Speaking about the end, John, do you believe, based on your religious upbringing, your connection with the church, you're a Christian, do you think that we are in the end times?
Every single thing you look at it tells me that. The pandemic, was that one of the horsemen? The Bible, you could literally go down the list, the Euphrates River's drying up. Everything's going towards globalization. They literally tried to force us to get a, vaccine passport. So you can't buy, they want to get digital ID so you can't buy or sell anything without buying into this system. They want to make it to where they integrate this ID into your body, and they're going to use everything they can get, whether it's vaccination or currency or whatever it is, to try to get some kind of mark on us that's integrated into a computer globalized tracking system.
Well, we already have that. Stuff. We already have that. What's the big thing? You carry credit cards with you. You go to the ATM. You fill up your gas card using a credit card. They know where you are now.
Yeah.
And what you're doing.
Your cell phone is the light version of that. Your cell phone, every picture you take in it, it tells you where you're at. It tells them where you're at and what you're doing.
Who are them?
Our government, and AI. There's another sign right there. The image of the beast in Revelation 13. That's AI. It's a man-made life form.
John, stand by. We've got to take our final break for this hour. X-Zone Nation. Our guest this hour is John MILOR, and his website is johnmilor.com. And you know what? We're going to be back on the other side of this break as we wrap up this first hour of tonight's show here in the X-Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, streaming at classic1220.ca. All right, John, this is the final segment. Is there anything special you'd like to hit on this next 13 minutes?
Well, I mean, we could keep talking a little bit about astral projection. We could keep talking about end times events.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever happens to come to mind.
All right, sounds like a plan. Just give me one sec here. Craig is messing up my board. No, don't like it. That'll work. Okay, here we go, John. Thanks for coming on, John. Always great talking to you.
Yeah, definitely.
Hello, yeah, it's been a while. Not much. How about you? I'm not sure why I called. I guess I really just wanted.
John MILOR is our guest this hour, www.johnmilor.com. And we're talking about, we've talked about out-of-body experiences. We've talked about UFOs. We've talked about astral projection. And now we're basically talking about the end time that was written about in the book of Revelation in the Bible. If you'd like to contact John, like I said, his website is johnmilor.com, JOHNMILOR.com. So when we look at COVID, when we look at AI, how does this all work into the possibility that we're in the end time?
Well, I think the World Economic Forum is definitely a big piece of that. You're talking about a international global organization of people that manipulate governments. They're so powerful, they dictate what governments do. They're not elected. So here we're like throwing our hat in, saying we want to be part of the World Health Organization, which is basically run by China. And I'm scratching my head like, why do we want to take orders from China for anything?
Sure.
That's insane. The whole point of that is to strip away our rights. As soon as some emergency comes along, anything to declare martial law throughout the election system and switch us over to another form of government. I mean, like, we're right around the corner from that.
But how can that be so bad? Because people within the UFO community and the contactees say that, this is all part of contact. This is what the aliens want. This is what we need. Just like Star Trek, the Federation of Planets. So how can the people want it both ways? They want the utopia that television tries to tell them, that the United Federation of Planets and the one world government is the way to go. And yet they're concerned about losing their freedom, losing their rights, and the list goes on and on and on. They're worried about Big Brother watching them, which he already is. So what, in your opinion, John, what would be the downside of having a one world government?
Well, all you have to do is know what's in Revelation, the book of Revelation, to see that. It's going to end in a tyranny the likes of which we've never seen before. All you have to do is look at world history, look at people dating back to ancient times, Antiochus Epiphanes and, Genghis Khan and, up in more modern times, Adolf Hitler. See the kind of atrocities that they did, see the mass murders. And, the World Economic Forum, they literally state that we need billions of less people on this planet. That's part of their objective. They want us to die en masse. And it's not good.
Well, I understand it's not good, John, but I don't think this planet was created and can sustain the growing population that we have. It's impossible.
I don't think it was meant to. We were meant to expand into the cosmos. So these people who probably even have the technology to make that possible would rather just have us die off. They have no respect for the sanctity of human life whatsoever, unless it's their own. But honestly, we were created to love and to grow, to populate, to multiply and be fruitful. And with that command comes the natural conclusion that, we would eventually populate this entire planet. But guess what? Space is pretty big. There's lots of room to grow.
Sure there is. Sure there is, John.
No reason why
John, there'd also be a lot of room to grow if we were to empty the sea, but we can't. So how can we get into space with the technology we have today before it's too late? And this is one of the biggest arguments I have with reverse engineering, because if the ETs are here, if the MJ-12 papers were right, and if we have been working with the ET governments and the outside sources, why don't we have better technology? And why don't they just step in and help us solve the problems that we have? Oh, wait a minute. Then you've got the people saying, well, no, they can't do that because there's the non-interference clause. Man, there's so much double talk when it comes to who, what, when, where, why, when it comes to the extraterrestrial agenda, that it's no wonder people don't take it seriously anymore.
Yeah. Well, I honestly do believe that we have the technology. We've had it for a while. Are you familiar with Dr. Raymond or Dr. Stephen Greer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It'd be cool to have him on your show too sometime.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have him on the show.
You really?
Yep.
Is it because he is pretty dogmatic.
He's way out there.
But the people that he's in touch with, the contacts, and then of course he was behind the whole FBI whistleblower movement. He briefed 2 U.S. presidents. So
allegedly briefed 2 U.S. presidents. There's no evidence that he really did.
Well, he did brief Congress. That was video. Video.
Congress is one thing, but briefing a president, he's not that into it. He's got a lot of followers. Like I look at Greer and his groupies as a little cult. And I will say, I was
their SETI 5 or their CEI 5, whatever that is, where they can actually summon stuff and get it on video.
Have you ever seen those videos?
I saw one, but honestly, I wouldn't want to be part of that because that's divination. That's a version of it.
Yeah.
So even if they did show something, I'd be like, okay, you summoned something. Where it came from, who knows? It's no different than using a Ouija board. You can mess around with a Ouija board and manifest stuff too. My sister saw a Ouija board fly across the room. So, no thank you.
Yeah.
I don't want to participate in those things, but I don't deny that we probably have this technology and there's people that are purposely hoarding it.
But once again, John, if the technology is available, somebody would be using it. Maybe that's what we're seeing with the Tic Tac. But once again, billions and billions and billions of dollars are being taken from the American economy and put into the space project, both government and independent, to get to these other planets. God, we can't even get to the moon right. How the heck are we going to get to another planet? I think that when it comes to space travel in our time, John, to solve the population problem, it is not going to happen. I'm sorry. It doesn't make sense that anyone would really think it does. And if there is a jump in technology, then I will be the first to say, well, maybe, just maybe, there is reverse engineering available. But have you seen anything in your time as a member of the military, and that would lead you to thinking that there is reverse technology?
Oh, I know people personally.
No, John. I'm talking about you, John Miller.
Have I seen it? No.
Yeah.
I knew people that worked at NORAD and the things that they saw there. So,
okay.
have I seen? I've actually seen a ball of light about the size of a soccer ball that could pop in and out of this dimension. You could not see it with even night vision goggles when it was not flashing on, and it transmitted its location to me. I knew where it was at when it was not, when I couldn't see it. I could literally feel its presence. So whether that was a spirit thing, some kind of entity, I feel like it was an entity, but whatever it was, it had the ability to move around me, let me know where it was, and transmit that information to me, even though I couldn't see it. So that was some kind of technology. It was something that is certainly not commonly known or not advertised, because it was able to just hover there, completely silent and invisible.
Let me ask you this. How do you know it was there if it was invisible?
It was flashing on and off.
But you just said it was invisible.
Yeah. When it was not on,
okay.
So it was the size of a camera, or as bright as a camera flash, the size of a soccer ball, and it was in the jungle of Panama. This was during the Panamanian conflict back in 1990. And it came straight to my position out in the jungle. And when it reached my position, it stopped. So it would flash like just a blink, just on, super bright, and be off. And then it would move like 15, 20 feet closer and then flash on again. And it kept doing this, and it came straight to my position. And then when it reached me, it stopped about 30 feet away, and it just kept flashing on and off like it was observing me. And when I initiated communication with it, I said, okay, I come in peace, I know it doesn't look like it because I have an M60 over here, but I disarmed myself, put the M60 down. I said, I don't have any problem with you. I mean, this is my Star Trek moment, first contact, right? I'm talking to this ball of light. And my team leader was there, and he was freaking out. He was cussing me out and telling me, to shut up and everything. But I disobeyed a direct order because this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I was not going to pass it up for anything. And I was talking to this otherworldly thing. So whatever that was, be it an entity or technology, it was certainly something that our science can't fathom.
Did anybody else see this, or were you the only person who saw it? I'm not clear on that.
I saw it. My team leader that was there with me saw it. He was a truck driver down in Michigan after he got out of the Army. I haven't been able to track him down again, but there were two other groups. So after it did a full circle of my perimeter, flashing on and off as it went further back down into the jungle. There were two other outposts back there, and it did a circle around each of those. And there was one person who was up on guard duty at each one of those that told me about it.
Is it possible that this was some sort of drone that had been developed?
1990, creating something that you can't even see with night vision goggles, that exhibited so much energy that it was brighter than a camera flash. It looked like pure electricity. It made no noise. I have no idea. I seriously doubt that was any kind of technology that we developed.
Spirit? Who knows, John?
It matches Will-o'-the-Wisp, actually. I mean, if you
all right, John. I hate to do this, but I've got to go for now. And thanks very much for joining us, Exonation. John Miller has been my guest this hour. And if you'd like to find out more about John, his books, his projects, visit johnmilor.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break as the X-Zone continues with hour number 2, as we continue on our quest to, see what are facts, see what is fictions, and of course we're always searching for answers, but demanding the truth. We'll be back on Classic 1220. Don't go away.